when I was still in Iran, there were like a good amount of people in a social settings that didn't want to leave Iran. They had this like feeling of belonging, that feeling of belonging to the country and to the status that it is right now. It's gone. It's sad because that's a huge thing to just eliminate from your identity.
The thing about Iran that I find, again, as an outsider, where I've spoken to some people from Iran, is there seems to be just an absolute chasm between the policy of the government and what the vast, vast majority of people in the country seem to actually want, which is very different from a lot of other countries where you might have authoritarian rulers who are kind of taking some policy, and there's still a good number of people in that country who do actually support what that government is doing. But Iran, it seems to be that there's a huge gap between those two things, to the point where I almost, and other commentators have talked about, there's the government and then there are the Iranian people,
Yes.
and those are almost two separate things at this point.
Yeah, that's an interesting actually observation. Uh, and I think that because this funnel of who is getting the advantage, the basic needs of what group of people in Iran are being met right now. And I feel like this funnel is like getting narrower and narrower and narrower. Even I feel like within the body of the government, they're shedding. Even like there are people that was going to work in the body of the government, um, are finding it like really hard to work with, the supreme leader, which is like the core of the this power system. And yeah, so not like people far gone are not the main concern of this government to be served or to be like even considered. But yeah, we are seeing that this is even happening within the body of the government as well.
Do you still, I don't know how much of your sort of family and friends live in the US versus live in Iran at the moment, but for the people that do still live in Iran, have you, like, what kind of sense do you get from talking to them? Obviously, you're going to have daily conversations about just you as people and, how's your week going? But when topics come up about, what's the vibe on the ground? What's the sense on the ground of how we're feeling as people compared to like what the government's doing?
Yeah, it's kind of like tragic. I see two maybe major ways that people that I am in touch with coping with this situation. We have people who are using that radical avoiding tools and live their lives like my parents. I mean, they still show up, they talk to me, they seem calm and happy. I mean, yes, they talk about bad news, but I think it's their generation. They kind of like, I don't know, they found a better way to accept and deal with the changes and all the things that are kind of a spiral for the younger generations. But then I have friends who are still in Iran, younger generations, and that's just, I don't know how they are doing it, to be honest. Because I feel like a lot of them, they're very dedicated, hardworking people with plans, but the thing is that planning in Iran doesn't work because of like you try to save money. Like you put it, you cannot set a goal for that because things change on you so frequently, so randomly, that it just makes you, I think it's like a recipe for depression and like you will run out of all of your tools to radically avoid what is happening to you. So it's just like you see a lot of people. Like when I was still in Iran, there were like a good percentage of people in a social settings that didn't want to leave Iran. They were like thinking, yeah, we know that this country and this and that is not perfect, but we still want to stay and live here. They had this like feeling of belonging to the country. But I feel like that's that's gone. That feeling of belonging to the country and to the status that it is right now. it's gone, and it's sad because that's a huge thing to just eliminate from your identity. And a lot of these, I feel like the side effects, the things that will happen to your mental health, and just like understanding and realizing happens later in your life. Like for me personally, a lot of these are happening like in maybe most recent years. I always joke about this, but it is kind of like weirdly connected. I became a US citizen not long time ago. So maybe like,
What examples could you give of sort of this idea of giving up on the sense of your homeland and your culture and how that's psychologically affecting you? Like, what do you have some examples, even just like for you personally?
yeah, so the analogy that it is kind of dark analogy, but the analogy that I kind of feel makes sense to me when I think about it is that imagine that as a kid you're raised with a father figure or a mom figure, like in a family, that, like that family system was for a kid is like the only place that you feel safe and you feel that you can trust. But then you're being abused as a kid, but you really don't have the knowledge, the language of like calling what is happening to you when you're growing up. But then when you're an adult, you start reading, you start like seeing the other worlds, other families. You kind of like start feeling that, oh my God, I felt like the most unsafe, unwanted, not belonged in my own country, in my own home. So what happened to me and what should I do? So it's so hard. Most people cannot regenerate that when they're moving away. Let's say even at the age of 18. I moved at 21. A lot of us that left the country, we were like shaped for the most part. So you kind of like, yeah, you have a lot of anger, you have a lot of rage about what you experienced and how you were raised in your own country. You know they don't want you. They're happy that you left, but then the immigration policies also gets is getting harder and harder in the US, Canada, Europe. They all have their own rules, but you're not super wanted here either. But at least here, you know that if you work um, really hard, like something, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But even that's not, I think, good enough for just feeling better about all of this, not feeling belonged, and then regenerating the sense of home.